Hello students, it's Dr. A.S. Jami and it's our last topic of gallbladder series. So far we have studied about gallbladder stones, infections and stones in common bile duct, primary biliary cirrhosis, and now our topic is about primary sclerosing cholangitis. So let's recall primary biliary cirrhosis a bit. What is primary biliary cirrhosis? Primary biliary cirrhosis or cholangitis was an autoimmune progressive liver disease which is characterized by destruction of intralobular bile ducts. The pathogenesis of primary biliary cholangitis was also non-significant, but it is associated with other autoimmune conditions. So, what is primary sclerosing cholangitis? We are going to study primary. You have concept of primary biliary cirrhosis in which there is intralobular bile ducts inflammation, so or destruction. So now we are going to study about primary sclerosing cholangitis. Stylus stopped working. So let's discuss its definition. What is primary sclerosing cholangitis? It is chronic inflammation, chronic inflammation of both. Why it's not working? So we were on definition. Primary sclerosing cholangitis is a progressive chronic inflammation of intrahepatic and extrahepatic bile ducts. So what is the etiology of so we have discussed that. Let's discuss its epidemiology. So we discussed in our whole gallbladder that diseases are more frequently common in females as compared to males, but in primary sclerosing cholangitis there is sex male to female ratio is more in PSC is more common in males as compared to females. So there is a 2 ratio 1. So and usually the age of development of primary sclerosing is usually around 40 years. Males are more prone to develop primary sclerosing cholangitis. So what is the etiology of primary sclerosing cholangitis? So we are going to discuss about the etiology. The exact cause is unknown. Exact cause is unknown. So it has a strong association with the disease which we discussed in GIT section is IBD. A patient of chronic IBD have strong association with primary sclerosing cholangitis. Let's discuss. More than 90% patients of PSC have IBD. You got it. More than 90% patients having primary sclerosing cholangitis have IBD. So in IBD we know that there are two diseases. First is ulcerative colitis and second is Crohn disease. Crohn disease. So if a patient is having primary sclerosing cholangitis, he is having 87% chances of development of ulcerative colitis and 13% chances of developing Crohn disease. So if a patient is already having IBD like ulcerative colitis or Crohn disease, only 5% patients of ulcerative colitis are prone to develop primary sclerosing cholangitis and less than 5% patients are prone to develop primary sclerosing cholangitis of having Crohn disease already. So it is a strong association with IBD. The next association is with HLA B8 and HLA DR3. PSC strong association with HLA-B8 and HLA-DR3. So it also has strong association with other autoimmune conditions like hypergamma-globulinemia (IgM), hypergamma-globulinemia (IgM). So majority of patients having primary sclerosing cholangitis have ulcerative colitis also. So how a patient is going to present? Usually in early phases, initially the patient is asymptomatic. So what happens? Patient starting to develop symptoms of cholestasis. What are the symptoms of cholestasis? Jaundice, pruritus, pale stools or dark urine, fatigue, or it can also leads to acute cholangitis, and there will be right upper quadrant pain. The next, on later stages, primary sclerosing cholangitis patient develops with signs of cirrhosis. So what are the signs of cirrhosis? Hepatomegaly, portal hypertension, liver failure, and on clinical feature we find symptoms of chronic inflammatory bowel disease, which is frequently associated with primary sclerosing cholangitis. So how we are going to approach for diagnosis? Diagnostics. So first of all, we are going to check cholestasis present or not. So for this we perform laboratory testing of cholestatic enzymes. And what will we do? We'll do ALP level and GGT level, which will be raised, both will be elevated. And what happens to bilirubin level? There will be normal or increased conjugated bilirubin. So next thing we are going to perform is transaminases. First test is cholestatic enzymes, next is transaminases. We are going to check transaminases, ALT, AST. They can be normal or moderately elevated. So AST and ALT normal, maybe normal, or they can be moderately elevated. Next thing we are going to perform is lipid profile. What will we find? We will find increased total cholesterol level, elevated total cholesterol level. So next thing is we are going to perform CBC. On CBC what will we find? We will find signs of cirrhosis like thrombocytopenia. If a patient comes to you with inflammatory bowel disease and he is having increased cholestatic enzyme, you should suspect primary sclerosing cholangitis. So next we are going to perform serology tests, serology studies. We are going to perform serology studies. So in serology studies we are going to differentiate about different diseases. We will check auto antibodies. First thing is we'll check for PNK, atypical perinuclear antineutrophilic cytoplasmic antibodies. Uh, About 80% of primary sclerosing cholangitis patients have PNK positive. So next autoantibody we are going to check is anti-nuclear antibody, ANA. Where we studied it? We studied in SLE, systemic sclerosis and polymyositis, and in tuberculosis can also be present. So ANA is also present in 75% patients of primary sclerosing cholangitis. So next antibody we are going to check is ASMAS, anti-smooth muscle antibodies. So if anti-smooth muscle antibodies are present, it indicates autoimmune hepatitis. And the next antibody we are going to check is anti-mitochondrial antibody. The presence of anti-mitochondrial antibody will support our diagnosis of primary biliary cholangitis. So next we are going to perform immunoglobulins. So first immunoglobulin we will perform is IgM. In 50% patients of primary sclerosing cholangitis, IgM is elevated. 50% PSC patients, it will be elevated. So next and immunoglobulin we are going to perform is IgG level, and about 60% patients of primary sclerosing cholangitis will have elevated IgG level. So if a patient comes to you with IgG4 level elevated, it will suggest IgG4 elevated cholangitis. So next our diagnostic point is we are going to do some imaging. So first of all we will evaluate whether the patient is having biliary obstruction or not. So to evaluate it we will perform CT scan, ultrasound abdomen with CT scan with contrast or not, or MRI. These three modalities are used for diagnosis of biliary obstruction. So what we will find on these investigations or these imaging, we will find diffuse thickening of bile ducts walls. Diffuse thickening of bile duct walls. We will find focal bile duct dilatations. So there can be gallbladder anomalies like the thickening of gallbladder wall or enlargement of gallbladder. So these can also be found on ultrasound abdomen, CT scan with contrast or MRI. Next, advanced imaging can also be performed. Advanced imaging. These advanced imaging include MRCP. So it is a method of choice if there is no biliary obstruction. So in this we will see there will be intrahepatic and extrahepatic biliary strictures formed. So there will be dilatation, a stricture, then a dilatation, then a stricture, alternative dilatation along with stricture formation. So next imaging will be ERCP, endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreatography. So it also shows similar findings like bile intra and extra hepatic bile duct stricture formation alternating with dilatation and beading of bile ducts. You are seeing this is the beading. Don't take it wrong. This is the beading. Or if we say dilated stricture, dilated stricture, there comes the stricture and there comes dilation. So beading and dilatation of by intrahepatic and extrahepatic bile ducts alternating with stricture formation. So we can also perform ERCP. The next diagnostic evaluation point is our liver biopsy. We will perform liver biopsy. It is not indicated in routine work for primary sclerosing cholangitis. So if there is small duct primary sclerosing cholangitis, will perform liver biopsy, or if the symptoms of autoimmune hepatitis are overlapping with primary sclerosing cholangitis, will do liver biopsy. So what we'll find on liver biopsy, our findings will be onion skin fibrosis, onion skin fibrosis, concentric periductal onion skin fibrosis. It is typical but rare presentation in primary sclerosing cholangitis. So what is the pathophysiology? In stage 1, I am going to tell you verbally that in pathology, in stage 1 there will be inflammatory infiltrates of portal triads and degeneration of bile duct epithelium. In stage 2 there are usually 4 stages, stage 1 to stage 4. In stage 2 there will be periportal inflammation, bridging fibrosis, periportal fibrosis, and in stage 3 there will be septal fibrosis and bridging necrosis and intrahepatic cholestasis, and in stage 4 there will be biliary cirrhosis. So next we are going to discuss about the differentials. So the differentials include primary sclerosing cholangitis, primary biliary cholangitis, and secondary sclerosing cholangitis. These are the, so what happens in secondary sclerosing cholangitis? In secondary sclerosing cholangitis, there is an underlying condition. It develops due to an underlying condition like chronic biliary obstruction due to any stones, tumors, or stricture formation. There is a trauma or surgery of bile tract, or there is chronic pancreatitis, or there is ischemic injury of bile tract like post transplantation critically ill patient. These patients are prone to develop secondary sclerosing cholangitis, and there are signs of cholestasis and elevated pressure in intrahepatic bile ducts, which leads to fibrosis and cirrhosis. So what will we find in secondary sclerosing cholangitis? There will be similar findings to primary sclerosing cholangitis. Additional symptoms depend on the cause. What is the cause, which we discussed in few seconds ago, and it has a poor prognosis. There will be increased ALP, GGT, and conjugated bilirubin level, same as primary sclerosing PSC cholangitis, and there will be underlying condition changing. So it may also lead to ascending cholangitis. So this is the differential diagnosis of our today topic. So how we are going to manage? So there is no curative treatment present in market for primary sclerosing cholangitis. What we do, give manage we do sportive care. So what includes sportive care? There is no currently medication present which prevent disease progression. So the main treatment is liver transplant only. Liver transplant is only curative. So to decrease the ALP and AST level and to decrease our transaminases, what we give? We give ursodeoxycholic acid. So what it do? It decreases transaminases as well ALP and serum bilirubin level. So we will give some symptomatic treatment in the form of ursodeoxycholic acid. So if there is any stenosis in bile ducts, intrahepatic or extrahepatic, what we can perform? We can perform ERCP with dilatation of stenosis. So To treat stenosis, we will perform, to relieve symptoms, we perform ERCP with dilatation of stenosis. Or to check whether the cholangiocarcinoma is present or not, to exclude our cholangiocarcinoma, we will do ERCP with dilatation of stenosis. So the next thing we can do with ERCP is to place stents for severe stricture formations. So next thing is, as we have discussed that it is associated with IBD. So we patients with primary sclerosing cholangitis are at increased risk of developing IBD. So ulcerative colitis 87% and Crohn disease 13%. So what we have to do, we have to monitor our patient or to monitor or to monitor the complications of comorbidities in primary sclerosing cholangitis. For IBD, we have to screen our patient whenever patient comes to you with primary sclerosing cholangitis, and then every 1 or 2 years, if a patient is having IBD, we have to screen it for PSC, and if a patient is having PSC, at the time of evaluation of PSC, we have to screen for IBD, and if a patient is having IBD, we have to screen for primary sclerosing cholangitis. So if a patient is having IBD, primary sclerosing cholangitis should be screened every 1 to 2 years, and same goes with. And if a patient comes to you with primary sclerosing cholangitis without IBD, so every 3 to 5 years there should be screening for IBD. So you are getting it. So if a patient comes to you with colorectal carcinoma, the same protocol we are going to follow. If a patient comes to you with colorectal carcinoma, at the time of evaluation, we will screen and monitor for complications of primary sclerosing cholangitis. And if a patient is having cholangiocarcinoma, what we perform, we will perform abdominal ultrasound or MRI. So, and we will perform CA19-9 measurement. So this is the screening method of cholangiocarcinoma, and we perform it annually. So next thing is, we are going to perform gallbladder screening, gallbladder CA carcinoma screening. So what we perform for this screening is abdominal ultrasound. So it is performed annually to screen for gallbladder carcinoma, as primary sclerosing cholangitis patients have strong association with these disease. So we have to screen for progressive liver disease. So what we do liver chemistries, we'll perform coagulation studies, we are going to stage fibrosis, and we have to screen the fat soluble, we have to test fat soluble vitamin deficiency. So the screening of progressive liver disease is liver chemistry, coagulopathy, fibrosis staging, fat soluble vitamin deficiency. So if a patient comes to you with primary sclerosing cholangitis, you perform it, you obtain the samples at regular intervals. Like first, a patient comes to you with primary sclerosing cholangitis, you perform it while diagnosing primary sclerosing cholangitis, and then regularly you will do this progression, you will screen for progression or complication. So what complications can arise in a case of primary sclerosing cholangitis? PSC complications. So a patient can leads to steatorrhea and deficiency of fat soluble vitamins. So next complication which can arise is liver cirrhosis. Next complication which can arise is bacterial cholangitis. The next complication which can arise is cholangiocarcinoma or gallbladder carcinoma or colorectal carcinoma and hepatocellular carcinoma or pancreatic carcinoma. These complications can arise in a patient of primary sclerosing cholangitis. So what is the prognosis of primary sclerosing cholangitis? Primary sclerosing cholangitis prognosis after liver transplant. There, there is the 5-year survival rate. 5-year survival rate after liver transplantation. After liver transplantation is around 85%. So 5-year survival rate after liver transplantation is about 85%. So that's all about primary sclerosing cholangitis. So let's revise it. Primary sclerosing cholangitis is a progressive chronic inflammation of both intrahepatic and extrahepatic bile ducts. So the exact etiology is not known, and so there is an association with autoimmune disease, and there is strong association with the patients of primary sclerosing cholangitis are more prone to develop IBD. So what we do, so patient is often so how patient going to press, patient is often asymptomatic, so there will be signs and symptoms of cholestasis and cirrhosis with the progression of disease with right upper quadrant discomfort, pain, and next thing we are going to perform lab studies to evaluate for primary sclerosing cholangitis. We will on our lab study there will be lab findings of cholestasis like ALP raised, GGD raised. So PNK is positive in 80% of cases. MRCP or ERCP is used for diagnostic confirmation. So the main management plan is liver transplantation. That's all about primary sclerosing cholangitis. If you have any question, you are more welcome to ask.